Dean Martin was leaving his Vegas show when he witnessed a child being kidnapped in the parking lot. What happened next turned the smooth entertainer into an action hero and saved a little girl's life. It was 11:47 p.m. on June 14th, 1967, and Dean Martin had just finished his second show of the evening at the Sands Hotel. The Copa room had been packed with its usual mix of high rollers, celebrities and tourists, and Dean's performance had gone smoothly. 2 hours of effortless charm, perfectly timed jokes, and flawless vocals that made everything look easy. Dean was walking through the employee exit toward the VIP parking area, still wearing his black tuxedo and feeling the satisfied exhaustion that came after a good show. He was looking forward to getting home to his family and unwinding from another successful evening in Las Vegas. The Sands Hotel parking lot was dimly lit and mostly empty at this hour, with only a few scattered cars belonging to late-shift employees and the occasional high roller who was still inside gambling. Dean had parked his silver Cadillac in his usual spot near the back of the lot, away from the main traffic areas where he was less likely to be bothered by fans. As Dean approached his car, he heard something that made him stop dead in his tracks. The sound of a child crying in terror. Dean turned toward the sound and saw something that immediately sent his protective instincts into overdrive. About 50 yards away, near a dark blue sedan, two men were forcibly shoving a small girl into the back seat of their car. The child, who appeared to be about 8 years old, was struggling desperately and screaming for help. "Mommy! Help me! I want my mommy!" the little girl cried, her voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. Dean Martin had never been in a situation like this before, but his response was immediate and instinctive. Without thinking about his own safety, his expensive tuxedo, or the potential danger he was walking into, Dean started running toward the car at full speed. "Hey!" Dean shouted as he sprinted across the asphalt. "Let her go." The two men looked up in surprise at the well-dressed figure running toward them. They had obviously not expected to be interrupted during their crime, and they clearly hadn't anticipated that their witness would be someone willing to intervene. The larger of the two men, a heavy-set guy with a beard and wearing work clothes, made a quick decision. Instead of releasing the child and fleeing, he slammed the car door with the girl inside and turned to face Dean with aggressive intent. "Mind your own business, pretty boy," the man snarled, pulling a knife from his jacket pocket. "This doesn't concern you." Dean was close enough now to see the little girl's terrified face pressed against the car window, her small hands pounding on the glass as she continued to cry for her mother. The sight of her desperate fear eliminated any hesitation Dean might have felt about getting involved. "It concerns me now," Dean said firmly, not slowing his approach despite the knife. What happened next shocked everyone who witnessed it, including Dean himself. The smooth, sophisticated entertainer, who was famous for avoiding confrontation, suddenly became someone completely different. Someone who was willing to fight for a child's life. When the bearded man lunged at Dean with the knife, Dean's reflexes kicked in with a speed and precision that surprised everyone present. Dean grabbed the man's wrist, twisted it with enough force to make him drop the weapon, and then delivered an uppercut that sent the kidnapper sprawling backward onto the hood of the sedan. The second man, who was thinner and younger, had been watching from the driver's seat. Seeing his partner go down, he jumped out of the car and tried to circle around behind Dean. But Dean had grown up in the working-class neighborhoods of Ohio, and he understood street fighting in a way that most Las Vegas entertainers never had to learn. Dean spun around and caught the second man with a right cross that connected perfectly with his jaw. The impact sent the young man tumbling backward over the trunk of a nearby car, where he lay motionless. The entire fight had lasted less than 30 seconds, but it had been decisive. Both kidnappers were unconscious, the knife was on the ground, and Dean Martin was standing in a parking lot in his tuxedo, breathing heavily and realizing that he had just done something that would have seemed impossible an hour earlier. But Dean's priority wasn't processing what had just happened. It was getting to the little girl who was still trapped in the back seat of the sedan. Dean quickly opened the car door and found the child huddled in the corner of the seat, sobbing with terror and confusion. She had dark hair, large brown eyes, and was wearing a yellow dress that was now wrinkled and torn from her struggle with the kidnappers. "Hey there, sweetheart," Dean said gently, crouching down to her level and speaking in the softest voice he could manage. "You're safe now. Those bad men can't hurt you anymore." The little girl looked at Dean with a mixture of fear and hope. She was clearly traumatized by what had happened, but something about Dean's calm presence seemed to reassure her. "I want my mummy," she whispered through her tears. "I know you do, honey," Dean replied. "What's your name?" "Amy Rodriguez," the child said quietly. "I was waiting for my mama outside the store, and those men grabbed me and put me in their car." Dean's heart broke. As he listened to Amy's story, she had been waiting outside a late-night grocery store while her mother shopped inside, when the two men had simply grabbed her and forced her into their vehicle. "Mamie, my name is Dean, and I'm going to help you find your mama," Dean said, extending his hand to her. "Can you come with me? We're going to call the police and make sure you get home safely." Amy hesitated for a moment, then reached out and took Dean's hand. As Dean helped her out of the car, he could see that she was shaking from fear and shock, but she seemed to trust him instinctively. Dean picked Amy up in his arms and carried her toward the Sands Hotel, where he could get help and call the authorities. As they walked away from the sedan, Amy looked over Dean's shoulder at the two unconscious men on the ground. "Are they going to hurt other children?" Amy asked quietly. "No, sweetheart," Dean assured her. "They're not going to hurt anyone ever again." Inside the Sands Hotel, Dean's appearance carrying a distressed child while still wearing his stage tuxedo created immediate concern among the staff. Dean quickly explained what had happened and asked security to call the police while he tried to comfort Amy and locate her parents. Within minutes, the hotel was buzzing with activity. Las Vegas police arrived to arrest the unconscious kidnappers and take statements from witnesses. Hotel security reviewed parking lot surveillance footage that clearly showed the kidnapping attempt and Dean's heroic intervention. But the most emotional moment came when Amy's mother, Elena Rodriguez, arrived at the hotel after receiving a call from the police. Elena was a single mother who worked as a night shift nurse and had been doing late-night grocery shopping when Amy was taken from outside the store. "Mamie, my baby," Elena cried as she ran toward her daughter. Dean watched as Amy ran into her mother's arms, and both mother and daughter collapsed into tears of relief and joy. The reunion was so emotional that it brought tears to the eyes of everyone present, including Dean. "Thank you," Elena said to Dean through her tears. "Thank you for saving my daughter. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there." Dean knelt down beside Amy, who was still clinging to her mother. "Amy, you're one of the bravest little girls I've ever met," Dean told her. "And you, Mrs. Rodriguez, have raised an incredible daughter." The police investigation revealed that the two kidnappers, Ralph Morrison and Tommy Chen, were part of a larger operation that had been targeting children throughout the Southwest. They had planned to take Amy to California, where she would have been sold into an organized trafficking network. Mr. Martin's intervention almost certainly saved this child's life. Detective Robert Hayes told reporters the next day, "These men were dangerous criminals with a history of violence against children. If Mr. Martin hadn't acted when he did, this story would have had a very different ending." The story of Dean's rescue made headlines throughout the country, though Dean tried to keep the publicity to a minimum out of respect for Amy's privacy and his own preference for avoiding attention for his good deeds. Frank Sinatra was amazed when he heard about Dean's heroic actions. "I always knew Dean had guts," Frank told friends, "but I never imagined he could go from singing love songs to fighting kidnappers in the same evening. That takes a special kind of courage." But perhaps the most meaningful response came from Amy herself. A week after the rescue, she sent Dean a hand-drawn picture that showed him as a superhero, complete with a cape and the words, "Thank you for saving me," written in careful 8-year-old handwriting. Dean kept that drawing on his dressing room wall for the rest of his career, and he often said it was more meaningful to him than any award or recognition he had ever received. The rescue also led to a lasting friendship between Dean and the Rodriguez family. Dean quietly helped Elena with Amy's education expenses and stayed in touch with them over the years, watching Amy grow up into a confident, successful young woman. "Mr. Martin didn't just save my life that night," Amy said years later. "He saved my future. He showed me that there are good people in the world who will protect children, and that gave me the strength to overcome what happened to me." Dean's actions in the Sands parking lot revealed something profound about his character. When faced with a child in danger, all of his cool sophistication disappeared, and he became exactly what was needed: a protector willing to risk his own safety for someone who couldn't protect herself. The incident also demonstrated that Dean's stage persona was just one aspect of who he was. Behind the smooth entertainer was someone with the courage and physical capability to fight dangerous criminals when the situation demanded it. That night showed everyone who Dean really was. Elena Rodriguez reflected years later. He wasn't just a singer or an actor. He was someone who understood that protecting children was more important than protecting his image or his safety. Dean Martin's rescue of Amy Rodriguez became part of his legacy, proving that real heroism isn't about seeking attention or recognition. It's about acting immediately and decisively when someone needs help, regardless of the personal cost. The smooth entertainer who made everything look effortless had proven that when it mattered most, he could transform into exactly the kind of hero that a terrified little girl needed. If this story of instant heroism and child rescue moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who believes that real heroes are the people who act without thinking when children are in danger. Have you ever witnessed someone become a hero in an instant? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to check out our other videos about the moments when entertainers proved they were real-life heroes.